Welcome to another edition of the podcast. Hello, how are you today? My name is Mitch Corbett. I'm the host, and today we have a fantastic guest for you today. Her name is Karina Libido. Karina and I worked on cruise ships together. She was a photographer, I was a videographer, and since then we've had our own adventures. She actually became a burlesque dancer in New York City. Since then, she's gone and moved to Vermont. She's doing some social media stuff with her YouTube channel. She has a lot of great stories to tell, and I don't want to keep you any longer from hearing those stories, so let's get to it. Let's get to Karina Libido. But you're from the Ukraine or Serbia? I forget which one.
Ukraine, yeah.
Boom, nailed it, got it. Woo. All right, so I'm here with the lovely and I guess I would say vivacious Karina Libido. Thank you for being a podcast on the Hello, How Are You Today podcast. We used to work on cruise ships together 12 years ago as photographer. Well, I was a videographer, you were a photographer. You tried to be a videographer.
Yes.
I were taking you out the one day in Norway and we got to see the puffin birds.
I know. I saw that photo recently. I found it. I just stumbled upon it in my like old folders, and I was like, oh my God, somebody took a photo of us from the back, like you're kind of teaching me how to use that giant video camera, and then we were filming the fjords, and I was like, how funny, that happened 12 years ago, and now I'm kind of getting into it by myself with my YouTube channel, the whole like filming and editing. But you were the first one to show me the ways.
I don't even think I knew that many ways that when I taught you those tricks. That's right. I've gotten a lot better since that time. So let's talk about it. I mean, from Ukraine to cruise ships to burlesque to YouTube channel, from New York to Vermont, you are a woman of many different, I don't know if skill is the right word, but like skills, and like you just have a pizzazz for like trying new and different things. So like, where does it come from? Like, I mean, I look at photos of you on YouTube doing the self-made stuff and the burlesque stuff. Obviously, it's like, where does all this come from?
That's a great question and a great way to put it, that like that desire to do different things. Well, I think I never actually thought of it that way seriously, but now that you asked, the first answer that pops in my head that we could blame zodiac signs, probably. I'm a Gemini. So this is very natural to me to want everything at the same time and to try different things. I have that natural curiosity that luckily never fades. I mean, it is kind of exhausting to be me, but at the same time, I also love that part of me as well. It's not something that I came to because I'm enlightened or whatever. It's just, it comes very natural to me to be curious.
And, they always say that curiosity kills a cat, right? But curiosity, like...
Oh, no, don't say that. My cat can hear you.
Hey there,
I have a cat on my lap.
I got two cats as well. But you know what? They always say that curiosity killed the cat, right? But they also don't tell you how fun being curious and how entertaining it can be for the cat before it killed it, right? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if you watched the show Ted Lasso.
No.
So there's a scene in there where like the main character is doing a whole like he's one-upping the chauvinistic pig of the series. And it's like, the problem with you is that you always assume you know everything instead of being curious. And if you were curious, you'd realize I am very good at darts and I'm about to kick your ass sort of thing at this game. And it's like, I feel like the people that aren't curious, the people that aren't, willing to explore the unknown sort of thing, they're always kind of like, they always have this kind of like weird ego about themselves where they think they know it all, but like they don't seem fun. But your life is full of fun and interesting things. So like,
yeah.
So like, how did you get introduced to like, because when we worked on cruise ships, like did that affect your decision to go into burlesque? Because like on ships, it was very, wear this uniform, look this way. And then you go the complete opposite and burlesque where it's like, everything's shiny, everything's like naked, everything's like risque. It's like it's such a 180, but like that affect your decision to like go into that avenue?
Oh my God, Mitch, 5 minutes in the interview, you're already blowing my mind because I never made that connection in my head ever. Uh, oh my God, that's funny. I never thought of that. But you're right. It could be a protest to my life on the cruise ships because, like you said, it was like being in an army and yeah, very strict. Do not, oh my God, do not expose any personality by any means. You're just a number in this giant corporation, you know? And that definitely wasn't easy on me. But I want to also come back to a couple of things that about Ted Lasso. I think you quoted that like how people who are
And sorry, it's not
yeah.
it's not the quote, it's not a Ted
Okay.
Lasso quote. It's a quote from a Walt Whitman painting of some sort that he references in the show. I'm not crediting
There we go.
Ted Lasso with the quote. It's someone
There we
else's
go.
quote that's used in the show.
Walt Whitman about like people who think they know everything versus people who are very curious
Experience
and
everything.
experience everything. And there was another quote that I recently heard. I don't remember. It was some ancient philosopher. Maybe I can't remember who exactly, but he said something like, I know more than you because I admit that I don't know everything, you know? So yeah, I mean, who knows everything? Come on, even Google doesn't know everything. So that's definitely something that comes natural to me to always try to learn more in different ways of life and different angles of looking at things. And I personally believe that geographical location affects that a lot. So like where you're located from, where you're experiencing life changes your life a lot.
Mm-hmm. And like, especially like, you know, on cruise ships, like you get to like, the fun part about that environment is that you get to meet people from all around the world of different nationalities, religions, likes, creeds, females, trans, that sort of thing. And it's such a melting pot of like awesomeness. But at the same time, you're so restricted with the work that you have to do on the ship. So tell me, like, is that kind of like, did you always have an interest in burlesque, or was that something that came to you afterwards?
Oh no, Mitch, I'll tell you more. When I moved to New York, I didn't know burlesque existed. I didn't know burlesque existed until I accidentally saw it, and I was insulted when I saw it, and I looked away because I thought, oh my God, that woman is a slut. She's so inappropriate. I can't believe what she's doing. Like, she has to be locked up or something, you know, in the kitchen and, you know, do some dishes like a woman is supposed to do. Because I was very brainwashed, you know, like everyone
Now,
else.
is that from the Ukrainian culture
Yeah,
or the?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is no burlesque in Ukraine still to this day, as far as I know. There is a lot, well, not quite a lot. There is some in Moscow in Russia, but I don't think there's a lot outside of Moscow, and I don't know of any in Ukraine. So I didn't know that was allowed, you know, like I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know a woman can behave that way and be celebrated for it and be paid for it and be respected for it. And that blew my mind. But it wasn't an easy thing for me to admit because yeah, my first reaction was not good.
So how do you so like within a reaction like that, immediately people are going to think, you know, oh, she probably just ignored it and went on with her merry old day and everything. But you, like, how did you get into it exactly?
Yeah, so why I say I saw it accidentally because I saw it at the jazz show. I half jokingly say that I moved to New York for jazz, which is the reason I'm now thinking of moving to New Orleans. I love jazz. I love live jazz. people dressing up, swing dancing, like that is my scene. And I was only about like 3 weeks in New York City, and I had some time off, and I found this jazz event that I went to, and there was a jazz band playing, and then out of the blue, this woman appeared, who later we became great friends with this woman years later, and we were doing shows together like every week. So, and then after that reaction, obviously something has changed in me, but I didn't know what it was yet. But then what I noticed is that I started to coming back to the same jazz events. They were monthly, I think. And then I started going to these events right before burlesque started and leaving right after it ended. And then I started seeking out burlesque shows. And then I realized that, okay, I think I have to confess to myself in something, and just of having the thoughts of me wanting to do that. And
you damn sinner, you, how dare you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, honestly, it was a huge like internal personal transition, huge, like coming where I came from, having no dance background, no art performance background. Like it was a big step to do if you think about it. And here I have to give a huge shout out to my best friends back in Ukraine, because they were the ones I confessed to of having these dirty thoughts, of thinking of maybe becoming a burlesque performer, and this is what it means. And I remember those long phone conversations, and I was so scared to even confess to my best friends back home. And all of them, and specifically one of them, I remember her reaction was like, I'm not surprised at all. Like, you've always been like dancing, you know, naked with a boa on top of the kitchen table at our girls' parties. And I'm like, oh, you're right. That makes sense. We've actually all been doing that in some form or another. I just had no idea that you don't have to like hide in your own apartment and do this. You can actually do this on stage and be celebrated. You know, that was the biggest shift.
And so like, let's talk about like, because burlesque, like, it's a performance, it's an art form, it's fantastical, it's so different, but at the same time people will recognize it wherever they see it, sort of thing. So when you first get started, like, how difficult was it to learn that kind of like performance art, like the dancing and the flamingo feathers, and it's like there's so much to go on to it, because like it's you're showing this body part and then you're not showing this body part, and they're like, what is the art, what is the art behind it, sort of thing.
Oh my god, I love how you're like you're able to decompose it like that. I really love, like, you show this part, you show that part. That's exactly
I've seen
right.
burlesque before. I've been to many burlesque wrestling shows before. They're fucking awesome.
Oh, nice. I was actually asked to something like that once, and I completely didn't take it seriously because I thought it was some kind of scam. But
no, it's like it ends up being like a variety show. So like, you start with the wrestling show, then you have a burlesque show afterwards, or even you do it before and after, and it's like a cool amalgamation of art forms, sort of thing.
God, that's amazing. I wish I knew more of that back then. I was very skeptical. I was like, who is this person asking me for this weird thing that doesn't probably exist?
Well, you say weird thing, you say weird thing, but then you're also a burlesque dancer. When you're saying wrestling's a weird thing.
They didn't mention burlesque. They just asked me to take part in this wrestling show. And I'm like, I'm not an athlete. Like, and then somebody told me, oh, it's like kind of girls kind of pretending to wrestle for a show and you get paid really well. And I'm like,
oh, really well? That's okay. So that was a scam. That really,
oh,
if they say they're going to pay you really well and it's a wrestling related thing, that's porn. That's 100% pornography sort of thing.
Maybe I made that part up. But when you do burlesque, anything is very well. Yeah. Anyway, how I actually learned. Huge shout out to the New York School of Burlesque. As I like to say, that is my only American education. They give you, once you graduate, it's like a 4 weeks, once a week, like on Sundays, we had a kind of a workshop. And after 4 of those, you graduate and they give you like a diploma, and they call it that you have a degree you are associate ecdysiast. You know, it's ecdysiast is, I think it's the name for the type of animals who shed their skin, like snakes. And so because you shed your costume, you are associate ecdysiast. Anyway,
Okay,
it's
cool.
very academic. Yeah, and that's where the headmistress of that school, headmistress of burlesque, Jo Boobs Weldon, amazing woman, my stripper mama, taught me everything I know. I was lucky to get this burlesque series. It's like Burlesque 1-on-1 or something like that, from her. And then, you know, it was amazing. It was eye-opening and so good. Such a safe space. You learn everything you need. And then after 4 weeks, you graduate, and the graduation actually happens on stage of the iconic legendary Sleeper Room, where I eventually performed a lot after that. And to that graduation, I invited everyone I knew, and I asked several people to film. And it's funny, like when I watched that recording, you can see that she introduced me, Jo Weldon. She introduced me, and my music started, and I was not ready to go on stage. And I had to yell from backstage, "I'm not ready!" And she was like, "Hold on a minute, she's not ready." And she made like a funny joke. And then I finally did go out on stage. I was having panic attacks that day. I was
I can only imagine.
so scared. Like I don't remember being that scared in my life, because like, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't believe I'm doing this. And I invited everyone I know, and like, what's gonna happen? But the reason I invited everyone I know is because I was very much aware that this could be, and probably will be, my first and last time I'm performing. So like, I'm graduating from the school. This is the chance they give you to be on stage, and that's it. But just in case, I recorded it and sent it to a few producers, and shockingly, it just like developed. Hi, honey. It developed very quickly from there, and I started getting bookings more and more. And in a year or two, I was like a very busy, what they call a full-time burlesque performer. Even though anytime you hear a full-time burlesque performer, that means they have at least other 2 jobs to support them financially, or someone else to support them.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to the wrestling scene, the way that develops as well. Now tell me, like, so like you've never done that sort of thing before. You mentioned that you would only just get naked and dance on at parties and stuff like that. So, but like, how did your body change? Because I imagine that you went from like, you know, you're always kind of in shape, skinny, but I imagine that there's a lot of like your body transformation in terms of like being able to perform athletically and stuff like that. Because you're moving a lot on stage when you're doing that sort of thing.
That's true, actually. And you know, I never realized that until I stopped performing because of the pandemic. I never realized how performing kept me in shape and how much of a workout it actually was, because you're always on adrenaline. Like, I'm not the person who works out, who goes to the gym, and I'm not the person who like rehearses her acts
for her cat.
What?
You're not rehearsing just for the cat, are you?
Okay. No, I am rehearsing, but when I'm rehearsing, I'm kind of running through them just to remember the choreography, to make sure to hit the beat in the music. But when I'm rehearsing, I'm not jumping around like I do on stage, because first of all, my house would fall apart. And second of all, like, I don't see the need in that. But when you go on stage, because of the adrenaline, you do crazy things that your body is not necessarily ready for. I mean, like, you know, like you can do half splits on stage when you're not stretched enough, things like that all the time. Or like when you fall
adrenaline is a hell of a drug, isn't it?
Absolutely. Oh my God, I missed that. I missed that high. When you like drop on your knees in my secretary act, I drop on my knees and I slide through the stage. I mean, you wouldn't do that like with a clear head. You have to be in adrenaline to do that. And then you have bloody knees all the time. You're bruised all the time, you know. So yeah, that's something I noticed when it was gone. I'm like, oh, I'm like losing shape. But I wasn't kind of preparing my body in any way. I also want to emphasize that everybody is burlesque body. And, you know, you see all kinds of bodies on stage and all kinds of genders and identities. And it's really not about anything athletic or even dancey. I often say, and I mean it, that I don't really dance. I just take my clothes off and smile. You know, I'm not a dancer. I never was. So yeah, burlesque can be as dancey or as still or performance arty as you, it can be anything. So I didn't have to do anything with my body or with my stamina or anything like that.
So, and like you kind of mentioned how like you had these great instructors, but I imagine throwing yourself into that kind of environment, you're going to meet, like you mentioned, trans, LGBTQ, all that community probably involved with that environment, with that art form. Was it similar to way when you did ships? Cause like it just like you're like, did it blow your mind with how many cool and amazing people you got to meet during that run?
I mean, yeah, the diversity, but also it's also the New York City. You know, New York City is, when you were describing ships in the beginning, like how diverse they are, how you meet people from everywhere and you hear all these languages. New York City is the same pretty much. Of course, it depends on which community you're in. And yes, in burlesque community, oh my God, it's like the most liberal, open-minded, and diverse in a way community, like any artist community. You know, it's very different from Wall Street community in New York City. So yeah, there's definitely that, but I would say even more so, much more so. Ships were so long ago. I definitely am seeing more diversity in New York City and in the artist community than I could ever see on the ships.
No, really. I mentioned it, like there's such a, like, the ship life, like you get to be around all these people, but not everyone gets to really be themselves at the same time.
Yeah,
sort of thing. There are rules they had to follow, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, you got to meet all these great people from New York City in the burlesque scene, and also it's fucking New York City. That's so cool. But I imagine like after a performance, there are probably like so many people that, you know, with bad intentions come up and approach you for like other things. So like, how were you able to navigate those waters?
Great question. I am dying to debunk that myth. It doesn't really happen. And, but again, do you mean like creeps who follow you home, or do you mean like guys trying to get your phone number, you know, or get you on the date?
I mean, both.
Well, it's a fine line, actually. It's almost
it's just like, here's the line, and like you just mentioned two things are on the same side, that line.
Yeah. It's funny. I find it to be a common kind of misconception for people from outside burlesque. I remember it stunned me once when I was showing my coworker years ago a video of me performing in this beautiful club, and she watched it and she was like, oh my God, and you did that at like 9 p.m. weren't you afraid to be kidnapped after that? And I looked at her and I literally never even thought of that, because it's funny, people actually, and again, this is like 99% of the cases. Of course, creeps happen and crazy things happen once in a while. You know, they might never happen. You know, it's the creep land. It's like unpredictable. But most of the time, nobody actually dares to do anything questionable towards you when you're a burlesque performer, because you're in the spotlight. And that's why I love and miss that dynamic. I love that because of the things I can let myself do when I am that persona, Karina Libido, not only on stage doing the act, but also like walking through the club after I've performed or right before I performed, because sometimes you you have what they call like atmosphere gig, when you're just hired to walk around and, you know, be sassy. That's my favorite thing. Can you believe it? Like, you get to dress up and be sassy and get paid for it. Well, you don't get paid much, but sometimes you might. And it's funny that people really watch themselves, because everyone is watching me. And so whoever I'm talking to, if they mess with me, everyone can see them. And people are very aware of that. It's fascinating how people change.
And it's gotta be like, not for nothing, but like men usually, like, they're attracted, like when you're performing on stage, there's an aura of confidence, of power, and that sort of atmosphere. So if you're like a creep, or like some guys, like, that's probably the last person you want to go to approach, is the power confident person that's just on stage.
That's true. That's true. It's actually scary to a lot of people. Also, people often think that like that somehow attracts a lot of like love, like true, genuine love, romantic interest from other people. And I would say
that's just because of Moulin Rouge.
Yeah. Yeah, but still not necessarily. I think that kind of confidence, even in 2022, especially in a woman, it still might be frightening and kind of
even frowned upon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So strange. I have a joke in my stand-up set where, like, I admit that I'm physically attracted to like strong women, like China or a Jade Cargill, women that I go to the gym and they have like their muscles, and I'm like, man, they're just so attractive because they're so powerful, sort of thing. And I have a whole bit about it. I'm not going to spoil it on here, but it's fascinating. It's so intriguing. And you got to live in New York City now, doing all this, and like, what was that like? Because that is like, if people haven't gone to New York City, when you walk into New York City, there's instantly like a vibe of like stuff's going on. There's happenings going on. There's so much energy. Kind of take me through that kind of experience, like living and like in the city.
Yeah. Oof, New York City. Like every other New Yorker, I'm having love and hate relationship with New York City. When I first came, I was obsessed with New York City, obsessed. Like, I was on a date with the city every minute I could find free. All I wanted was like to walk the dirty streets of Manhattan, and I was obsessed, and that kept me very happy and very blind to a lot of ugly things that New York City is. Which is great, because like my first couple of years were like that, when like I didn't see anything bad. I was in love. I was in love with that city and every minute in it. Now looking back, first I want to say that, I mean, I don't know how my life is going to be moving forward, but those 5.5 years in New York City will probably be like the most cinematic, amazing years of my life, because and that's the word I use a lot when I talk about my New York City experience. It was cinematic, because I cannot believe the stuff I got to do. Like, I did not know that this life existed. Meaning, like, I was thinking about like old movies, you know, about New York and jazz. And like I said, like people swing dancing, everyone is dressed up, like men wearing tuxedo, women in like long gowns, having this exquisite, extraordinary parties. I thought that was the New York that only existed in my head, like that fantasy. And then when I accidentally became a part of it, it absolutely blew my mind that it actually exists, you know. And that's why, you know, beware of what you dream of.
It's you're describing like an actual intimate relationship. Like I know there's so many people out there that
Yeah.
have that wonderful sex-filled like passionate relationship, but then they realize it's maybe it doesn't work out, right? And it's always nice to talk about it, but it's like it wasn't really great or healthy for you. Was that the case for you? And is that why you've gone now to Vermont, which is
Yeah.
quiet and cold?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. So I think I made a post a while ago about comparing New York City to an abusive partner, which it is, because it draws you in, it lures you in. It's like, it's so tempting.
It
It's
can
so,
chew you up and spit you out all at the
yeah,
same time.
exactly. And then it just like breaks you, and then it draws you back in. And it's phenomenal how you can see that. Like when I was moving to Vermont, like a month before I was moving, I started like actually seeing how New York City is trying to keep me. It was so funny and scary. Like, for example, in New York City, they have this, what they call them, like low income housing.
Yeah.
Housing. Yeah. So you have to apply. It's a lottery. You have to apply, and your income has to be below certain limit. And some housing, it's like very low, but some housing, it's like, if you're a single person making under $80,000 a year, you qualify. So low income definition is very vague in New York City, because even 80K would be pretty low to live a nice life, without rats and stuff. And so, and I applied for that, like, I don't know, years ago, 2016, 17, whatever. And in the month when I was already packing to move to Vermont, I got an email that I won that lottery. It was insane. It's like, and I was like, nope, New York City, you had your chance. Nope, I'm leaving. Yeah, it definitely grew on me in a bad way. When I was leaving New York City, I hated it, Mitch. I hated it. I was like, never again will my foot be here. Like, what a disgusting, dirty, dangerous, threatening to women specifically place. Because if you're a man in New York City, I feel like, especially a white man, I feel like you have no idea what women and other minorities go through. Because one of the main reasons I left New York City and started hating it is street harassment. It became absolutely, and I'm surprised, I feel like people don't talk about it enough. It became absolutely psychologically impossible for me to deal with. Like, I caught myself that I'm afraid to leave my apartment to go get groceries or like go to the laundromat, because I know I will be stared on, I will be catcalled, I will be harassed. And it's terrible. And it's not when you're, come back from gigs at night, necessarily. It's like it happens in the bright day, and you'll walk to the subway, you'll see people jerking off. It's like, it's bad. It's bad, but it's funny that it's also so good in New York City that it blinds you to these bad things for a while, and then it takes years to start seeing them, and then you're like, wake up one day, you're like, I cannot spend another day here.
It kind of sounds like you see the movie Up, right?
I don't think so.
About the guy, the dog, the house full of balloons.
No, I'll
Disney
put it
Pixar.
on.
And it was a scene. There's a scene where the dog is like, "Hi, my name is Doug," and I gets distracted by a squirrel. And it's like, it sounds like, yes, when you first get to New York City, it's like, yes, squirrel, 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 yes, squirrel. But then eventually you get tired of the squirrels, and you see, oh, needles, guys jerking off, like so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I imagine like being in an arts and culture scene like burlesque, that does a lot to kind of hide like the bad stuff in like a certain city like New York City or in LA or something like that. Yeah. But like, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it kind of feels like you were experiencing all this awesome, creative, fun environment stuff, but then the pandemic happens, and then you're not allowed to do all that sort of stuff. So you get to see the real side of it, and that affects the way you're feeling towards the city.
Yeah, I actually left before the pandemic, which was
So I was wrong.
no, that's cool. A lot of people did leave New York City right after pandemic started, and a lot of people I know and a lot of fellow performers did leave the city. But it's funny that it was incredibly what's the word? Like forward seeing of me, you know, like I almost predicted future, because like I'm very grateful to my past self. For some reason I picked Vermont, which is like the less populated place to be. And when pandemic started, I was already here. I already bought a house. I was already settled in. So, and like got to spend these years in this safest place in America, COVID wise, to be. So that was good. Yeah.
And so you're living in, you do the drastic change, you get out New York City, you break up in New York City, bad New York City, they cheat on you.
Yes, yeah.
They're never, they can call me at 3 a.m. and I will not answer the phone, sort of thing.
Don't call me drunk. Don't text me drunk.
Yeah, in New York City, don't call me drunk, okay? Had your chance. And you go to Vermont. Why Vermont? What's it been like? I mean, you're glowing with happiness because you just seem like you're healthy there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, why Vermont? There was this point when I already, and this is always my favorite time in life. And whenever whoever of my friends going through this, I always say, oh my God, this is my favorite time in life. When you already know, when I already knew I'm gonna leave New York, but I still didn't know where I would go. That was amazing because I felt like I had 50 states to choose from, and not the world yet, but like the map of USA is my oyster. Like I can go and move anywhere in the country. And I started choosing. I am the person who does a lot of research. Like when it comes to buying a new appliance or moving to a new place, I do tons of research. Like I even researched prior to this, I Googled and YouTubed how to give a good podcast interview. So like I question everything and I try to learn from other people, etc., all the time. So I did a ton of research and I had a list in my head and then eventually on paper that the new place had to check. And going through that list, you will see how tired I was from New York City because,
Fresh air, no rats.
Yes, exactly.
Grass, lots of grass.
Exactly. Yeah. So it had to be, first of all, safe. I understand that like safety is relative, but definitely safer than New York City. Safe, bike friendly. Bonus if it's scenic, so like beautiful nature. Huge bonus if it's by the water, because I love going to the beach. I'm a water baby. And then a few other things, like there should be some kind of arts community, stuff like that. And Vermont blew my mind and absolutely checked all these boxes and more. I actually didn't even kind of know Vermont existed. I knew nothing about it. And I found out in a very funny way. I was performing at a Las Vegas Burlesque Festival in 2018 in the fall. And I was and I left New York like 6 months after that. So I was already thinking where to go. And the person who produced Las Vegas Burlesque Festival told me, oh my God, you should come to Vermont Burlesque Festival. It's in Burlington. And I just started laughing because I thought he made it up. Because for burlesque, we call burlesque sometimes in this cute way, burly Q, burly dash Q. And so I thought, oh, Burlington. Oh, how cute. Ah, stop it. Funny, like made up town. And then I realized it's real. So I came for the festival in January 2019, end of January. It was like -30. The snow was up to my thighs, and I'm 5'9". It was bad. Like it took us 3 hours to just clean our car from the snow so we could drive. It was like that. And I still kind of weirdly fell in love with it. And I was like, I want to live here because I saw, first of all, it was pre-pandemic. So I saw a huge art scene. I loved the Burlesque Festival. I saw a lot of little bars with live music, which is very much my thing, like local performers, stand-up, bands, all of that. Surprisingly, a lot of that for the size of the town, because the town is only 40,000 people. 40,000 people, mate.
Compared to New York City, which is what?
I know, right?
Like
yeah, it's insane. But what I noticed that here people don't think of like just Burlington. When you say you're in Burlington, it also means towns next to it. So like South Burlington, Willingston, etc. So it's actually more like 300,000. Yeah, I don't know, the whole state, whatever. But I definitely saw that art scene is surprisingly happening for the size of the town. And then there are other things that amazed me. Like, for example, I very much got into minimalism back then, which helped with the moving. And I very much embraced that mentality. And my friend told me that in Vermont, there is a law that prohibits billboards and any advertising like in public spaces. And I was like, oh my God, how amazing is that? And the reason for that is that they want you, when you drive through Vermont on the interstate or wherever, they want you to enjoy the view. They don't want you to be distracted by the billboards. And so little things like that. And then solar panels, like honestly, that was huge for me because when you drive from upstate New York into Vermont, it's so evident how there is like no solar panels at all, and then solar panels everywhere. And I really love that ecological conscience. And when we went to the movie, it was part of the Burlesque Festival to see a movie about burlesque, and the only ad that was in front of the movie was about the importance of recycling. So things like that. And it's very local business oriented. It's very smart actually when it comes to, I really like how kind of the systems are working in Vermont. And I'm a big fan of that. Like composting is a law here, you can't put food scraps in the garbage. And I really care for these things. And I really love how conscious this state is.
Yeah, and looking up, it's not that far from the Canadian border. I mean, you could go visit Ottawa, like Montreal.
Hours away. I know. Yeah.
Well, if I'm in the area, I'd come visit.
Absolutely. It's beautiful in summer.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Summer and fall.
And now, so like you go from one extreme medium from like burlesque, New York City, now you're in Vermont. You mentioned the art scene there, like, but is there burlesque there in Vermont? I know you're doing pole dancing as sort of like a pseudo way of doing it or performing, like.
Yeah, there is, and surprisingly big burlesque scene here. But again, I moved right before pandemic, so everything shut down for a while, and then things did reopen. Like they restarted having burlesque shows a while ago. Like they've been having them, I think, all of this year, but it took me a while to even come out as an audience, even though like almost everyone is vaccinated, or like almost everyone is vaccinated, but I still had my
reservations.
Yeah, it just feels weird to be in a crowd again. And it's funny, like when you think about it, when first pandemic hit and how scary it was, and I was like, oh my God, what if I was still in New York City? What if I was still in New York City and not having the day job that I have, like I would be screwed, because my whole life depended, like my livelihood depended on being in a crowd every night. I had to be in a crowd. Like our shows had to be crowded. And it's just crazy to think about that even now, you know.
And so like it kind of seems like I know you're so like you're kind of just getting into pole dancing, you're not really ready to get in the crowds. You seem like the type of person that you need some sort of creative
Yes.
art form and everything. And is that where we get the Karina self-made YouTube videos coming from?
Yes, that and carpentry has been an outlet for me as well. And I have to say, I'm very proud of myself that yesterday afternoon, I finally sent that email out, putting myself out there and being like, I sent out to a big producer here in Vermont and I said, I think I'm ready to go back performing. Do you have any shows for me? So we'll see what comes out from there. I'm ready to go back. And the reason for that is because in November, I went to see a show and I got COVID. And even though I was vaccinated and everyone in that room was supposed to be vaccinated, so I was like, okay, well now, you know, I got it anyway. And I do feel safer now that I already had it. So I'm like, okay, now I'm definitely ready.
Listen, my wife and I are like, we feel left out because like, I think we're one of the few people left that haven't gotten it. And it's surprising that I especially haven't gotten it yet because I do perform comedy. I do travel for work quite a bit. And like in terms of like producing TV shows, like and meeting new people, I don't know how, or maybe I have had it and maybe I'm asymptomatic. I have no fucking idea, but it's insane that I haven't gotten it. And I'm going to knock on wood that, wait, no, I want to get it. I feel left out is what I'm saying. So I'm double vaxxed. I want to like just, it seems like I'm being left out of the whole COVID era of symptoms and everything. And so kind of give me an idea, like, where'd you get the idea to do the self-made videos? Because those are on YouTube available. Where can people find those?
Yeah. I started a YouTube channel called Karina Self-Made. And the main point of that channel is to inspire and motivate people because basically like I really want to focus on my channel this year. And you understand me, how much effort it is to make a video, like how much time editing process.
And you probably plan it every video too, which adds more work to it, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You have to plan it, to script it, to film B-rolls, to put all of that together. Then when you publish it, you have to do all the metadata, you know, promote it. It's a lot of work. But honestly, I just want to put there kind of what I already project in my real life. And I'm going to explain. So like, I think my conversations with my friends inspired me to make a channel because I often get asked, how did you get into tech? How did you get into burlesque? How did you get to New York? How did you how did you dare to do that? Like how, you know?
Because like it's a lot of people don't have that just fuck it and go with it attitude, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of like a unicorn in that sense.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, like how do you come to these decisions? Yeah, how do you build your life and stuff like that? And this is something that I want to talk about more on my YouTube channel, and especially to inspire more women to get into real estate, for example, which I have learned is a very man's world, even to this day, and to inspire more immigrants to get themselves out, to get into tech, for example, because I have zero tech experience and I'm an immigrant. So it's things like that I really, really, really want to kind of not teach other people, but at least to
have
tell
conversations, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, this has been a lovely conversation. I hope that I get to see you in person one day soon. I mean, I'm looking at like, if the comedy thing goes well, like, if I get an agent, maybe I'll be like, hey, can I do a show in Vermont? And then I'm crashing on the couch
Yeah, absolutely.
And you get. I've seen you perform on your Facebook channel a few times, and I'm always very, very impressed. So it'd be nice if you got to see me perform, being ridiculous human being I am.
I'd love to.
All right, Karina. So you have the Karina Self-Made on YouTube. Do you have Twitter, Instagram, that sort of thing? What do you want to promote while we're here?
Yeah, Karina Self-Made on YouTube. Also, Karina Self-Made on Instagram. I also recently created separate Instagram account for Karina Libido. It's karina.libido for my burlesque stuff. It's pretty empty now, but follow it.
But you're gonna fill that sumbitch up real soon.
Yeah, I just decided to separate those two because I originally reused my old account, but now I decided to create an additional one. And on Facebook you can find me under both names, Karina Libido and Karina Self-Made.
Oh man, so good to catch up with you. You look so happy and awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitch. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Karina. She has so much potential in the world, and the fact that she is actually utilizing that potential makes me so happy and so proud of her for trying and accomplishing everything that she's doing. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Until now and until next week, we'll see you guys down the line. Cheers.